I'd like to first thank Linda and ADAO for inviting me to present at ADAO's 12th Annual Asbestos Awareness and Prevention Conference. It's truly a privilege to be part of such a dedicated team who each contribute in our own way towards confronting the ongoing legacy of asbestos. As a specially trained asbestos professional with over two decades of experience, I've had a somewhat unique perspective in identifying and seeing firsthand a great many of the vast array of asbestos-containing materials and products that have been manufactured for well over a century. Further, after performing thousands of asbestos inspections and abatement monitoring projects in many of our nation's built environments and infrastructure, from homes to high-rises and nearly every place in between, I've witnessed a seemingly overwhelming amount of asbestos, and sadly much of it in poor conditions. And as Brent said, with many photos to prove it. In fact, it seems I've yet to find a type of material that has not been associated with asbestos in some manner or form, whether asbestos is in it, on it, or under it. The places where asbestos can exist is virtually anywhere. But in an attempt to learn more, over the years I've acquired and studied thousands of asbestos-related documents, from advertisements, product manuals, company catalogs, research books, and even a small library of asbestos industry documents that I obtained from a source in Quebec, Canada. Apparently, the world has an affinity for asbestos. Once acclaimed as the magic mineral, asbestos marketing reflected a certain reverence for the substance. Asbestos was symbolized as Lady Asbestos in protection of mankind's constructs against the destructive forces of nature. Asbestos was referenced in children's comics as it pervaded nearly every facet of daily life. There was even a series of cartoons by the former asbestos giant Keesby and Madison of Ambler, Pennsylvania, depicting amazing asbestos in action, celebrity endorsements, countless marketing detailing how asbestos would save money on fuel costs, and an asbestos defender in protection of house and property. And more marketing touting the so-called advantages of using asbestos. After many decades of increasing demand to fulfill the consumption, over 31 million metric tons of raw asbestos was imported into the United States, which we are still importing today. Further research revealed that additional figures exist for importation of materials already manufactured outside of the US, which amounted to millions more consumer products not in that 31 million in a multitude of retail markets. And even further research revealed that our initial asbestos usage data did not account for the tens of thousands of tons of asbestos-contaminated vermiculite, distributed to dozens of processing centers across the country and installed in an estimated 30 million homes and other properties throughout North America. Where did all the asbestos materials go? The vast majority of asbestos-containing materials still exist in our nation's homes, buildings, and other applications. Based on cumulative survey data, some materials may be found more commonly to contain asbestos. Common uses of asbestos include floor tile and associated adhesives, sheet flooring, pipe insulation, fireproofing, boiler furnace insulation, duct insulation, textured surfacings, plasters, ceiling tile, attic insulation, exterior siding, roofing, drywall, joint compounds, and so on. I think Paul Brodeur mentioned he could be here for the rest of the day, and I think I could too, but there's some of these are just more common. However, stated previously, many ACMs can be identified beyond those mentioned here. In fact, if I were to circle the suspect materials that could contain asbestos in this nicely illustrated graphic, a thorough inspection, if I were to circle the suspect materials in this graphic, I would encircle the entire house. In survey after survey, Damaged ACMs are routinely encountered in do-it-yourself renovation projects where homeowners can and do disturb building materials later found to contain asbestos. Homeowners should hire qualified and properly trained accredited asbestos professionals to inspect for and remove asbestos-containing materials before disturbing or conducting renovation jobs. And also where untrained subcontractors have improperly removed ACMs, again, properly trained and accredited asbestos abatement contractors should remove the ACMs and ask about an asbestos inspection before disturbing unknown materials or during renovation or demolition of buildings, which should contain information regarding the building materials being impacted. Signs of damage to building materials can be in the form of deterioration, weathering, moisture, and impact damage, wear and tear, and other types of physical damage. Additionally, building maintenance and housekeeping personnel in commercial buildings, like office buildings, are typically required to receive asbestos awareness training and must avoid disturbing ACMs. And typically, their instructions are to report conditions of damaged ACMs to appropriate supervisory staff or building management. Now, this is the part where I had about 1,000 slides showing conditions of damaged asbestos, but it was recommended that I reduce that a little bit. So this is just a few included here. What you see is damaged fireproofing found on top of a suspended ceiling system. In my experience, where there's spray-applied fireproofings installed in buildings, the delamination is rather common. You see this quite a bit, maybe not as extensive, but sometimes you see dust, you see small bits of debris, but it's typically there. Various workers could be affected by this, such as maintenance staff who need to access and work above the ceiling, IT workers installing cables, fire protection system installers, HVAC technicians, etc. Those folks that get up there could be exposed easily just by removing a ceiling tile. Pipe shafts, you see, crawl spaces, utility tunnels, plenum spaces, and so on, again, with more damaged ACMs. And if I had $1 for every one of these spaces I found with damaged ACM, ADAO would never need another donation ever again. That's how, I mean, every inspection that I'm on, I always find some kind of damaged material. In one image here, it also shows friable fireproofing on a ceiling-mounted vent. And what you see below there is an occupied office. So this material is delaminated off the beam or the ceiling deck and is sitting right on the vent, which is used as a return air plenum. So the air is passing through there right down to the occupants below. What you'd need to have is the building owner, which was advised to have it properly licensed, accredited asbestos abatement contractor clean the debris. The U.S. EPA conducted studies in the 1980s and discovered several 100,000 buildings containing friable asbestos and a significant number of those containing damaged ACM. In order to manage the asbestos, volumes of laws and regulations were created to control risks and help prevent exposures. Most building owners are required to designate presumed asbestos-containing material, or PACM, which includes surfacing materials and thermal system insulations in buildings constructed prior to 1981, and also including flooring and associated asphalt adhesives installed prior to 1981 as well. Or, which a lot of other building owners may fall into this category, where building materials that are known or should be known to contain asbestos, or so-called due diligence, is also included within regulatory requirements. And this is all accomplished by using a trained and accredited asbestos building inspector, someone like me. Other requirements of the building owner, you need to inspect for asbestos ACM or PACM prior to disturbance. For example, before the work subject to the standard is begun, building and facility owners shall determine the presence, location, and quantity of ACM or PACM at the work site. Again, this is the part where the building owner would call up Tony Rich or another many qualified, trained, and accredited asbestos inspectors to conduct a thorough building inspection. So there are existing laws in place that require asbestos surveys, which is a seemingly simple concept, but a very critical step in preventing exposures to asbestos. Know where the asbestos is. However, many buildings are not in compliance with this basic law, and it lacks adequate enforcement. Of course, one of the next steps important to this is to communicate the hazard, notify employees and subcontractors, convey the inspection information with those that may be affected. Now, this brings me to a recent discovery that I found, and today I'm here to announce that another material is to be added to the ever-growing list of known asbestos-containing materials. This particular material is a new, old stock modeling compound by the name of permacene by Permacraft. This material caught my attention due to the vermiculite that it contains. But when it got to the lab, they reported that the fibrous content, which you see there, is 30% chrysotile. And that's confirmed through testing multiple packages by NAVLAP accredited laboratories. And hobbyists beware. And the reports also indicated that there was a small percentage of amphibole asbestos mixed in, so that's assuming it's probably within the vermiculite. So we know where that probably came from. What does asbestos look like? Well, here's an example of a training display set that I made, created representing 100 different ACM samples. These are sealed within durable clear boxes. Each one is affixed and labeled. Trainers that use these say that they're invaluable to asbestos awareness. I mean, you see 100 different materials, and you see some of these have the fibers just sticking right out of the material. And included in these sets are a set of 6 regulated minerals. They're the real deal, the fibrous materials that have acquired over the years that are put in there, so you see all 6 represented. And a few non-ACMs, and a few historical materials such as the Kent Micronite cigarette with the asbestos filter. Lastly, I want to touch on another problem of asbestos exposure, and that's related to a trend, a disturbing trend, with asbestos abatement workers using cheap, paper-thin overalls made in China. And I have an example here. You kind of see that it's pretty sheer and not very protective. In fact, it rips right when you put it on, and it is not effective in keeping out any of the microscopic materials. And this is a trend that's commonly seen throughout the industry, at least where I'm at in Michigan.
The whole country, guy.
And these are not effective at all. My final statement is, if you have asbestos, give me a call. I'll find out for you or hook you up. But thank you very much.